All right, today we're getting into something really powerful, based on the work of Dr. Ramani Durvasule. This is for anyone who has ever been in a relationship that just, well, it feels confusing, it hurts, and you can't help but start to wonder, is it me? Am I the one to blame here?
So, let me ask you, does this ring a bell? You're constantly feeling guilty, like you're walking on eggshells all the time, but you don't actually know why. If someone asked you for a specific reason, you'd come up empty.
Or how about this one? I'm sorry has basically become your default setting. It's just what you say to keep the peace, even when you're thinking, wait a second, what did I even do wrong?
And then there's the big one, the really scary one. You start to question your own mind, your memories, your feelings, your perception of reality. You literally start to ask yourself, am I going crazy?
Well, listen to this. What if there's a different answer? What if after all of that confusion and all of that self-doubt, the truth is actually something totally radical? Maybe, just maybe, you're not the problem.
Okay, so let's really dive into that question, because it is at the absolute heart of so many of these painful relationships. We're going to look at the pattern that makes you ask that in the first place.
Now, Dr. Durvasule is super clear about this. We are not talking about someone who's just confident or has high self-esteem. No. We're talking about a consistent pattern of behavior. It's a combination of a few key things: a serious lack of empathy, an inflated sense of their own importance, a bottomless need for admiration, and they just cannot handle being criticized at all. You put all that together and you've got a recipe for a toxic environment.
But here's the catch, and this is so important to understand. It's a trap. These relationships almost never start with red flags. They start with the complete opposite. They start with incredible charm, wit, intelligence, charisma just pouring off of them. They make you feel seen, special, like you're the only person in the world. And that's what makes it so incredibly confusing when things start to shift.
So how do you go from that amazing, charming beginning to all of this pain and confusion? Well, it happens through a cycle, a very predictable and deeply manipulative cycle.
And this three-stage cycle is just brutally effective at creating emotional dependency. First, they idealize you. They put you on a pedestal. You are perfect. You are brilliant, the center of their universe. Then comes the devaluation. The little digs start, the sarcasm, the criticism, the emotional coldness. And you find yourself scrambling, trying to get back to that ideal phase. And finally, you get this mix of discard or reward. They might pull away completely, but then, just when you think it's over, they'll give you a tiny scrap of warmth, a compliment, a moment of affection, just enough to keep you hooked. It is an emotional roller coaster designed specifically to keep you off balance. One of the primary tools used in this cycle is something called gaslighting. And let's be really clear, this is not just a simple disagreement. It is a deliberate manipulation tactic. The entire goal is to undermine your reality, to make you lose trust in your own mind. This is a perfect everyday example of how it works. You state your reality, something completely valid, like, that comment hurt my feelings. Their response isn't to engage with that, it's to invalidate it. You're just too sensitive. You're overreacting. See what happened? The problem isn't their comment anymore. The problem is your reaction. And when you hear that over and over again, you start to believe it. You think, maybe I am too sensitive.
So here's a huge takeaway. If you are constantly confused in a relationship, that is not a normal part of love. That's not what compromise feels like. According to Dr. Durvasule, that persistent fog of confusion is a massive, flashing red flag that manipulation is happening.
Living inside that cycle, that pattern of idealization, devaluation, and constant gaslighting, it's not just unpleasant. It has a profound psychological cost that can actually change who you are at your core.
The long-term effects are really severe. We're talking chronic anxiety, deep depression, and a slow, steady erosion of your self-esteem until you feel worthless. So many people who've been through this use the exact same haunting phrase to describe it. I feel like I've completely lost myself.
This brings us to the million-dollar question, doesn't it? The one people on the outside always ask and the one that people living it torture themselves with. If it's this bad, why don't you just walk away? Well, the answer is incredibly complex.
It has absolutely nothing to do with weakness. It's about really powerful forces holding you there.
There's something called trauma bonding, where that intense roller coaster of good and bad creates an addictive chemical connection. There's that flickering hope that you can get back to the good times at the beginning. And then you have the real-world barriers, fear, maybe you're financially dependent, there are kids involved. And for so many of us, there's this deeply learned belief that love is supposed to be hard, that it means you have to suffer.
So, understanding this cost, that feeling of losing yourself, the constant anxiety, that's the first step. But the most important part of this whole thing isn't just about spotting the problem. It's about finding a realistic way to heal and get out of the pain.
The road to recovery probably isn't what you imagine. It's not usually some big, dramatic confrontation. It's a quiet, internal revolution. It starts with radical acceptance, truly accepting that they are not going to change. From there, you can create emotional distance, set firm boundaries, and then begin the crucial work of rebuilding your life and your identity. This right here, this is maybe the most important mindset shift of all. Your goal is not to fix them. I'm going to say that again. The goal is not to fix them. The goal is to heal you. If you're an empathetic person, your instinct is to help, to mend, to fix. Recovery begins the moment you stop trying to be their therapist and start focusing on your own healing.
Okay, so let's just recap the biggest takeaways. Your perception is valid. Period. Constant confusion in a relationship is a warning sign. It is not normal. Empathy is a superpower, but it is not a free pass for other people to treat you poorly. Setting boundaries isn't selfish, it's a profound act of self-respect. And real healing starts when you accept the reality of the situation, not the illusion you wish it could be.
This whole journey, from being lost in that fog of confusion to finally finding clarity, it's really about one thing. It's about reclaiming the person you were before someone else made you question your worth. It's about coming home to yourself.
And that's the final, most empowering message. The truly heroic act here isn't to try and change someone who will not change. The real courage is to finally see the pattern clearly, to understand that it is not you, and to take the steps you need to take to protect your own peace and your own sanity.